Welcome to EntreProgrammers Podcast, the podcast for developreneurs, where you get to be a fly on the wall listening to real conversations of developers trying to tackle the challenges they face as entrepreneurs.
Hey, John Sonmez here. Just want to take a second to tell you about a tool that I am really excited about. I've recently switched all of my email marketing over to a tool called Drip, and I couldn't be happier. I created a course, an email course, about how to create a blog that boosts your career, and so far I've gotten a ton of signups from it, way more than I expected. Not only that, but the engagement level of the people that are signing up is huge, and then at the end of the course, I'm getting big conversion rates, which is something that I really need in order to sell my products, and this is something that's extremely helpful to any entrepreneur, EntreProgrammer out there. The reason why Drip works so well is because it's specifically built for bootstrappers. It's email marketing for bootstrappers, and this is really why I switched over and why I'm finding it so effective. If you want to get started with Drip, you can get started today. Just go to getdrip.com/EntreProgrammers. Once again, that's getdrip.com/EntreProgrammers. And when you sign up, you can get an email mini course created for you. They'll actually do this for you. So if you're not sure how to do this, if you have a few blog posts or an ebook, they can get that started for you, which makes it super simple, and you can start getting those benefits today and not tomorrow. They also have all the kind of marketing automation rules that you would want, tagging, much better than a lot of the other major automation players, and they integrate with things like Stripe, PayPal, Leadpages, Chargeify, Gumroad, tons of great features in there. So I highly recommend that you check it out. Go to getdrip.com/EntreProgrammers. Take care.
We're live.
All right. So amazingly, I actually got a notification for this time around. I didn't have to wait for John to send me the link. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Every device in my house goes off except for my computer that I'm using.
So I try it every time with the hope I send out to the
didn't work. It didn't come to me on my computer. It came to me.
Yeah, I didn't get like a big notice like, "Hey, join this," like you would when you're trying to chat with one person. But I got the little red icon in the corner that it popped up and said, "Oh, notification," and there it was. So I just clicked on it and joined.
Oh, I should try that.
It's probably there for all of you guys.
Yeah.
You guys probably never check your Google Plus notifications. So.
I do pretty regularly. I am one of the 3 people that uses Google Plus on a regular basis.
It's actually good, and you should use it. Actually, Derick,
I agree. I think it's a phenomenal network.
Well, I don't know if it's it's okay, but there's. I was thinking more for marketing purposes.
That too.
Yeah,
I honestly, I do a lot of. I post a lot of my own stuff there, and for marketing purposes, it's like the best of Facebook and little bits sort of like Twitter.
With the world's worst UI layered on top.
Well, so many people rag on Google Plus and talk about how terrible the UI is and how it's such a terrible network that nobody uses, and I honestly don't understand the complaints. I really, truly think that the people that complain about Google Plus are only complaining about it because their friends are complaining about it, and they've never actually sat down to really use it.
I have tried to use it. I wanted to like it when it came out. So what I don't like about it, I can tell you. So I don't like the tiled layout.
I love that.
That's extremely confusing to me, and I don't like that you don't. When you're in a group, it doesn't seem like you get notifications for discussions like ongoing. You just get like an initial notification that a discussion was created, and then after that, like, it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, sometimes you get notifications, and sometimes you don't, and I haven't figured out why.
Yeah, see, I've never had that problem. Any conversation that I join in, either by commenting or by hitting +1 or whatever, I get continuous notifications of that conversation. I actually think the group feature is one of my favorite features, the community feature, whatever it's called, is one of my favorite features of Google+. I'm in the podcasting technology and resources group on there, and I love that group, the way it's organized, the way it works. I think it's a crap ton better than anything Facebook has ever done with groups.
Well, I hate Facebook a lot worse.
Yeah, I hate Facebook.
Okay, so Facebook is an anti-sponsor, and Google is going to sponsor our podcast.
Come on, Google Plus.
There we
Speaking
go.
of sponsors, If you're watching the video, this awesome shirt that I got from Drip. I got one
dang.
I need one. I mean,
I meant to wear mine. I got one too.
You got to get a conversion on Drip. So if you've got a Drip account, I got a sticker
and a book.
Epic notebook. This nice little personal note from Rob. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, I didn't get a personal note from Rob.
Oh, I got it. It says, "Thank you for
That's
your support, Dash Rob." Oh.
Rob Drip? Who's Rob Drip?
Yes, Rob Drip.
But anyway, on the Google Plus, what I was going to suggest, well, there's a couple, if you're trying to grow your YouTube presence, apparently Google Plus is the way to do it because you can circle people. Like there's actually a tool like the tweet adder for circling people on Google.
Right.
Which I think actually, hey, a listener of our show, the Wild Academy guy on YouTube, I saw him mention. I think that's where I got it from.
Jake. Shout out to Jake.
Yeah, Jake. Okay, all right. Yeah, he's got a pretty big YouTube presence there, and he seems to know how to manage the Google Plus YouTube thing. So
yeah, that's a good point though, because all of the comments that show up whenever I post a YouTube video to my Google Plus account, if somebody comments on there, it shows up on YouTube as well.
Exactly.
So they got this really nice cross-promotion thing going on. I was looking at my YouTube stats this morning because I honestly have never looked at that except for once or twice. I have 290 subscribers and 44,000 views on my YouTube videos. I had zero clue that I had that many subscribers or views on there. It's pretty dang amazing. And so yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were.
I'm just rambling at this point.
No, it's all good. So one other thing I want to point out with Google Plus is that if somebody plus ones a link or a video, then it raises it in Google's rankings.
Nice.
And the other thing that I wanted to ask about is I've had a few people suggest to me that I put the podcast episodes up on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that a crazy idea?
A little bit. You kind of want the problem with putting your episodes, whether it's podcast audio or video, in multiple places is you end up having multiple channels that you need to support and aggregate in order to really figure out your subscriber base and who your audience is. And so if you're looking for extra sources of traffic and you're trying to funnel these new sources into your primary source, it can be a really good idea. Like what I'm doing with Watch Me Code now. I've got a couple of free videos that I put up on YouTube this week to funnel people over to Watch Me Code directly. And so as a funnel, I think it can work really well. But if you're trying to use that as a primary source of people getting to you and your podcast, I think you run into problems of fragmenting your audience and which one do you focus on and how do you, it's a maintenance nightmare and reporting and all of that becomes really problematic.
That makes sense. I do have another question related to that, and that is if I do put the podcast episodes up on YouTube, should I just put them all up on my channel and then create playlists, or do I want to create separate channels?
Again, that comes down to how you want to manage your audience. So for me, I've got two different audiences. I've got the technical audience as Derick Bailey / Watch Me Code, but then I have the podcasting audience as Signal Leaf. I would not mix those two on the same channel. I would probably have separate channels for them. But with you, Chuck and DevChat TV, that's kind of all one big audience for you. I would probably do playlists.
Yeah, although you've got the freelancers. The freelancer show is kind of different.
But it still falls under the umbrella of DevChat TV, and you want people to discover more content within your podcast network.
Yeah.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I have mixed thoughts on it too. It's like you might as well do it if you can get someone to it doesn't hurt to put it out there if it's not going to require a lot of effort. Like you can get a VA or someone to do it and to publish them out there. It kind of does dilute the channel. It will hurt you for your YouTube channel in general because it will dilute the message. Because if people see that a majority of your YouTube videos are audio-only podcasts, then they're going to not go to your YouTube channel to go to your YouTube channel to get video content, right? It might pull in some people. So I would either, in your position, if you're going to try and actually establish a YouTube presence, then I would not dilute your channel at all. I would only have high quality video stuff on your YouTube channel, that like your Rails casts and those type of video, the Rails tutorials and things like that. And then I would possibly create another YouTube channel for just your podcasts and put that, because then it doesn't matter. It's like you're just going to use it as a funnel to get some extra traffic. People are not going to really be like consuming the thing mostly through the, well, I mean, another example is what we're doing here, right? With EntreProgrammers, we're essentially, the podcast is our main channel, but we are recording video. So we're just putting out the YouTube as an extra. Some people are watching on the YouTube. There's
we got like 50 or 60 views per episode.
But they're getting what they're expecting. Like they're not. It's not just static images of our heads, right, on the YouTube channel.
Oh, you could
everybody
do like
stop moving.
You could do the flying toasters, like a screensaver type of deal or something.
There you go. Yeah.
Totally doing the flying toasters.
I could watch that for like an hour and a half easily.
Yes.
But
or Nine Cat or something.
But that's where what I would think is I definitely think though you don't, if once you go and you start posting all your podcasts on your own YouTube channel, you'll make it so that you'll never be able to use that channel for like it will totally change the tone of it. So
maybe a Dev Chat TV channel.
I've thought about that.
But there's also something to be said about the proper medium, like I said, if you do YouTube, it's better to have video. Like maybe you could start capturing video on Skype as well, and then that would. But if you're just going to have the essentially, I don't know, it sort of cheapens the experience a little bit if it's just another way. I don't know how much. I mean, you could experiment with it and see if you get enough extra traffic, but I imagine that you wouldn't get much. Extra from there unless you're actually having video, and then people are like, they want to see the video, so they just like we have like 10% or less than 10, probably 5% of our audience watches the video.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could do would be to have the YouTube channel be like a supplement, so you could put extras on there, like if you've got guests, you could do like a 5-minute interview with the guests where you ask like kind of like who is the guy that does, is that Entrepreneur on Fire? They ask the same questions every time. Yeah.
That's smart.
Something like that. Like that could be pretty cool, and you could cross promote then, get the full episode, and then also say on the air, check out the YouTube extras.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that. That's probably the one I would recommend, because then.
But where would you go with that though? I mean, you might be able to get some extra people hitting your main podcast if they came in through that channel, but if you're telling people check out the extra interview on YouTube, where do you go from there? So what's the direction that what's the funnel for people that are already listening and now being told to go to YouTube? Where do they go after that?
So I've got kind of a crazy idea that I've been playing with for a while, and it kind of solidified with this idea of doing kind of an after-the-fact interview, and that is that I could go back to guests that were on the show a while ago, 6 months ago or a year ago, and do the interview with them as kind of a follow-up, and that way people are coming back for the interest in the topic. But then the other thing that I've been wanting to do, I just haven't had time to really push the button on it, is basically... let's see. So basically, the idea is that I would put together some kind of like cheat sheet or handout or something that they could get on PDF for from that episode, or so for example, I could have Katrina Owen come back on and we could talk about refactoring, and so there could be like a 1 or 2 page PDF that they download that's like, okay, here are the steps to doing refactoring on your code. and here are some suggestions for things to look for and stuff like that. So, kind of a mix between here are a bunch of points and here are a bunch of steps, and then I could use that as what do you call it? Basically an incentive to join the mailing list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Derick, my take on your question would be that you'd be using your existing audience, the huge podcast audience, to grow your YouTube channel, which you could then drive traffic back to your site with. So it would almost be like if you get your YouTube channel bigger, you're going to get more shares, you're going to get more. I don't know YouTube very well, but you're going to get more traction with the channel, and then you can use that kind of compound leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. Would be a cyclical effort there.
Yeah.
Anytime you can, I mean, definitely. Like, I can tell you for sure, like, because I'm on all the channels, right? On doing the blog, the YouTube.
Right, but the content that you're putting on YouTube is completely original. It's not supplemental or anything else like that, and that makes more sense to me.
Right.
Most of the stuff I have on YouTube, or at least my older stuff, was like preview videos. But then I started doing some original content on there as well, including recordings of my presentations that I do at conferences, and so that's when it really started getting bigger and taking off and helping funnel people back to watch me code, and the video I uploaded today is trying to funnel people over to my JavaScript This email course, which will eventually funnel them back to watch me code as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once people, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that once people come into your network, especially if you have lots of different avenues, right? Like, my content might be original on the different piece platforms, but if you can reuse content but make it original still, like, that sounds like a contradiction, but essentially, like, if you're recording a podcast, like Josh said, I think adding like 5 minutes on and recording the video portion of it, that's like a little bit of a different, piece or snippet or quick tip, right? It's like, this is going to be like a 3-minute quick tip. It's like, then it is totally original, but it's related to the thing, like you're reusing your time, like you're saying that. And then the same thing, like, now, can you hire someone to develop a blog post from that has like a cheat sheet or some kind of tips or something that is going to be valuable from that episode, like, so that you're like taking that one piece of content and you're putting it into these multiple, and then maybe you publish an ebook out of like all the podcasts that someone's compiled and like all the quick tips, or like, I don't know, like, so doing something like that, that's something that I've kind of thought about, like, would be an interesting thing to do if you're producing, because it's difficult to produce a lot of content. So if you can leverage it, but a lot of people just spam duplicate their content everywhere, and that's not good, because people will not follow you on multiple channels. They'll just, you're going to divide them, and then they're going to get annoyed. But like, if it's different on each one, but you're still reusing it. Like, in my example, like, I get a lot of fans that are watching YouTube and listening to the different, they might pick one or both of the podcasts, and they're reading the blog, and they're subscribed to the newsletter. So because they're getting stuff from me from all these different places, they're like totally zoned in to what I'm, to my message. But it's a lot of work, right? If I could just like have one big source and distribute still unique pieces, like, from that one thing, like, leverage a little bit more, then I'd get the same effect. And that's, I think you're probably in a good opportunity or a good position to do that. But yeah, I mean, I really like the idea of what Josh was talking about. How can you take and reuse content and still make it unique and make it targeted for that channel? If you can solve that equation, then you're going to be able to produce a ton. You're going to be able to expand out to all the channels with like a 10% or 20% increased effort.
And that's going to be significantly better than just reposting the episodes on YouTube. Doing something unique is going to be a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah, especially if you can, like a lot of the overhead in producing content is administrative, right? I mean, like, getting somebody just on the phone to do an interview is a royal pain. So if you can like take the extra 5 minutes and grab them for something else, and then really all it takes at that point is just somebody that you can outsource. It's like a task list, like, here's how you produce the video and put it on YouTube, and that's something you can outsource. So like the actual creation of the content is really hard to outsource.
Right.
But if you can set it up so that takes you just like a few minutes to actually create it, and somebody else puts it out there, then you're in good shape.
In fact, I realized I just started doing this, and I didn't even realize it. My first one was I did a video interview with Tyseer. I don't know if you guys saw that on my and I did so I've got a blog post here called How Tyseer Judah Built an Incredible Successful Technical Blog in 14 Months. Right, I'll post this in here. But anyway, there's a YouTube video. So what and this was by accident. And this I'm actually going to do this now with Matt Kramer as well. Shout out to Matt there. but essentially what I did was I wanted to do this video interview with Tyseer Judah because he built his blog in 1 year, sort of following my advice and a few other people's advice. He basically took a blog from nothing to 100,000 page views a month.
Wow.
By niching down. He went down to ASP.NET web API security. So very. So that's why, and narrowly focused, right? And so he had a good story. So I interviewed him for the YouTube video, and he was a little bit nervous about doing the YouTube video. He wanted to make sure that because he had never really done this before. So what he did was he sent me Q&A, all his talking points, right? As sort of in this couple page, and I was like, oh, hey, can I just use this as a blog post, right? So essentially, and so we did the interview, and he went through the talking points. But then I also had this other document. I was like, just make this a blog post. Yeah. Q&A, drop that on there. It is unique content because we didn't talk about exactly the same. It's a different, it's not the exact duplication. But then when I thought about that, I was like, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start. So Matt Kramer will be the next one. I was just on his podcast, but I'm going to record a video interview with him telling his story about how he grew up his business and launched these products super fast, in 1 day and all this stuff. And then I'm going to have him do essentially a guest post about that as well, a Q&A or some kind of, and then it's beneficial to him because he's going to hit 2 of my big channels, right? And then it's super beneficial to me because I'm leveraging that that one person. So I'm going to try and start scheduling people case studies, success stories, and I'm just going to ask them, hey, look, let's do the video, and then let's also if you here's a chance to guest post, you'll get a link back from Simple Programmer, and that's like you said, Josh, the coordination is the hard part. So I think that's we'll see if it ends up being a good strategy, but so far that's what I'm planning on doing. So
nice.
That's pretty epic.
All right, so completely shifting gears for a moment. So an update on my financial crisis.
All right.
Okay. I emailed you guys earlier this week, but for the benefit of those listening, I basically took every penny I could from all of my December income and what money I brought in so far in January and dumped it into my credit card debt. So it ended up being about $6,000 that I put into my credit card debt.
Nice.
This month, which was a great thing to pay off $6,000 of that debt. I'm down to just over $18,000 in debt now. But I'm kind of screwing myself for the future, in the future, because I know I have more bills coming up, and there's one particular thing that I took money out of or didn't put money into, which is my savings and retirement. So instead of putting any money into savings and retirement this month, I basically used it to pay off credit card debt.
Good.
And I wanted. Okay, I was going to ask.
I was going to say.
Is that good or not?
You should never, ever. I don't care what other financial gurus say. Do not ever save money when you owe money. Okay. Don't do it.
One of my favorite.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave Ramsey has a great line on this. It's would you borrow, if you have $20,000 in debt, and you want to put $1,000 in your savings account, would you go and borrow another $1,000 to put that money again in your retirement? Right. No, no one would do that.
No one would do that.
But that's
what you're doing. That's what you're doing when you owe that money.
So let me ask this question. I have a small, modest savings account. It's only got $13,000 in it, which is basically 2 months of savings for me, which is enough. If both my wife and I lose our jobs today, we have 2 months to figure out how to get more income. Would you take any of that money out of savings and pay down the credit cards?
I would take all of it except for $1,000.
Why
In,
$1,000?
in fact, I might not even do that. In fact,
So I see all
might-
three of you guys vehemently nodding yes.
Yeah.
here's why.
Yeah.
Here's why. Your credit card has a cash. Well, okay. There's two things. Two things that you probably have. I'll just guess here. First of all, your credit card has a cash advance.
Right.
Right. And the credit card itself, like how many times do you really need cash, right? You can use the credit card to pay. So
rarely.
worst case scenario, let's say you do this and you follow our advice and you pay down $12,000 off of your credit card, and then next week you lose your job, your wife loses your job,
Right.
whatever. So then you're like, oh crap, John is such an idiot. Now what do I do? Well, you've got a credit card now that your limit is still right. You have, so you could just then recharge it, and now you have 30 days that you don't pay interest on that charge.
Right.
So you've just pushed it. It's okay. Like it's okay to use that as a backup. I mean, it's using your credit card as a backup is not necessarily the best thing to do,
Right.
but you probably have a 401k, or
Yep.
your wife does.
Yep,
Okay,
most of
so worst case scenario. This is like my wife has I never contributed to 401k because we'll get into that. We don't have to get into that.
Yeah,
but
we've talked about that before.
I've got better investments because I invest
Right.
in real estate. Most people
Yes.
don't. But if you do have a 401k, right, if you're in the U.S., you can borrow against the 401k. So
Right.
that's like your emergency, right? So if the we're keeping
And
this
my
family-
financial advisor has talked to me about that a number of times, and
Yeah.
there's been a few times where he asked me how things are going, and I tell him that I can't pay into the retirement account right now, and he's like, as long as you're not coming to me asking to take money out, then you're
Right.
still doing okay.
And that's cool. So it's an emergency. So
Right.
so that's why I'd say you don't need to have savings when you have credit card debt, because you can pay all that off. You don't have to worry. If the crap hits the fan, what you're going to do is number one, first you're going to go to your 401k. Well,
Right.
that's where I would go first, and I would take out the smallest amount that I need to make it by, right?
Right.
I'd be selling the treadmill behind you before I did that. I'd be like emptying out my, all of my stuff on Craigslist, right, to survive, just to make it so that I don't have to do that.
Right.
But if I do have to do that, I'm going to take out the smallest amount that's going to get me through, right? And you can pay that back you have to pay interest on your own 401k. Big deal, right?
Right,
You're
right,
paying
right.
interest yourself. And there are even some extenuating circumstances where you don't even have to do that, but and then you still have the credit card as a backup. So absolutely pay off the debt, pay off the debt, pay off the debt. Take all the money that you can. Don't worry. That the only reason why I would say to leave like $1,000 cushion is because you don't want to have to borrow from your 401k because
Right,
you're like
right.
$50 short. That's just
Right.
Yeah.
right? Or you don't want to have to charge on the credit card again because you're $50. Like you want to kind of seal that deal. So maybe you leave like a little bit of a buffer just so that but you don't count on the buffer. You absolutely don't.
Right.
I
Yeah,
have a
I
little
might,
bit different
if
take
I
on
can
this, but
convince my wife to do this, I'll probably take 10 grand out of my savings and pay that down.
so one thing that occurs to me, I really don't like the idea of borrowing against the 401k because there are all kinds of rules about doing that. And so I would make absolutely sure that I knew what the implications were.
Well, technically, I have a Roth IRA and a life insurance retirement program. That's a whole different story. But anyways,
Yeah.
it's,
So just make sure you know what the implications are before
Right,
you
yeah.
do it.
Right.
And you'll have to talk to somebody that knows a whole lot more about that than.
yeah, I have a financial advisor that manages all
But-
this for me.
The other thing is that the only reason that I would leave the money in the savings account is if you thought it was likely that you or your wife would lose your job within the next few months.
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
And
my
so-
wife is having her annual review today. So-
Okay, so do it right now.
Yeah.
Now.
So, honey, the good news is we have $12,000 less debt. The bad news is that you just lost your job and we don't have any anyway. But I mean, you can go find more clients.
Yeah.
I don't think you really worry too much about that. It sounds like you've got a
Right.
pretty stable setup with your current clients.
I do.
So at least for your income, you're pretty safe. And so
Right.
I wouldn't be worried too much about pulling money out to pay off debt there.
Okay.
And if your wife has been at her job for a while, it's a pretty stable thing. The
10
annual
years.
review, blah blah blah,
Okay.
is probably going to
13.
go well.
13 years.
Oh, well then she's
So-
probably got would have if she got laid off, she would have whatchamacallit, the severance pay anyway,
Yeah,
so
right.
you're probably
Yeah,
good.
she's got tenure at her job, so
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, if she got let go of her job, there would be catastrophic things happening, and yeah.
All right,
So-
dude, if
so
you
yeah,
don't have
so-
this credit card debt paid off in 3 months, you better have it paid off in 3 months.
Yeah. So I would leave $1,000 in the in your emergency fund just because if the car breaks down or the furnace goes out or there's a big windstorm and blows shingles off your roof, you can just take care of it if you have to.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're not foreseeing any major medical or anything else. So I just take the rest and pay it off. Pay it
Okay.
down.
I totally agree with everything, but I'm going to go one further, and I'm going to say that you should cut up your credit card.
They
I
are
agree.
locked in a safe in my closet, and I'm not going to destroy them because they are for me right now a last ditch effort in case I do need.
Well,
some.
I mean, if you can handle, so like the way I avoided, so when I was in college, I did not let myself get a credit card with more than a $300 limit.
Right.
I had the Capital One, like you're a drug dealer, a convicted drug dealer.
I had a
limit on
Discover
my credit
card with a $300 limit. That's
Yeah.
like.
So I mean, and we don't have credit cards now, so it's helped me. Like there have been times when I wanted to buy like some $1,000 info product, and I
Yep.
just didn't have the money,
Yep.
so I had to wait. And
Yeah.
it's very easy for me. I'm fairly conservative fiscally, but it's easy for me to rationalize investing in my business.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so I don't trust myself with the credit card. And
Yeah, no, I dumped this thing. I dumped both of my cards, my business and personal card, in my safe in the closet. It requires effort and conscious will for me to go in there and get the thing out. It's not just like, oh, here, let me just. No, it's effort. But for me, in my situation, I think getting rid of the credit cards right now would be a bad idea. I may do that in the future if I can get myself out of this living paycheck to paycheck crap.
Yeah.
Once I'm able to do that, then there's a higher likelihood that I would get rid of my personal credit card. Although I'm very likely to keep my business credit card around because the vast majority of my company is paid for on that card, and I don't want to have to manage the future of how much I'm going to owe for something like bandwidth costs on Amazon.
Yeah.
And my company insurance, it comes out of my credit card every year. Things like that
Mhm.
they show up on my account, and I'm like, okay, I know what that is. Let me go take care of this.
Right.
But if I had to plan for it ahead of time, I would be royally screwing myself.
All right, I want to push this button a little bit because, and I'm not saying you're wrong in the decision you're making, but I want to push it a little bit, and I can see some of the reasons that you're citing, but you could put all of those charges back onto a debit card and have it just come out of your bank account.
I could if I
And-
had enough money in the account to begin with.
Right.
The problem
So-
is having that money ahead of time requires more planning and not living paycheck to paycheck.
Okay. The other thing is that a lot of times when people are unwilling to do something that makes them uncomfortable, it's because they either don't have the confidence to move ahead with it, or they aren't ready to commit to that course of action.
I'll totally admit to that.
So-
I'll be the first to tell you that it's just I'm not comfortable doing that right now.
So
I should, but
yeah. So what I'm saying is and I'm going to ask you a question, and it's going to be somewhat uncomfortable, but are you not willing to completely commit to giving up debt? Or the other question is do you not have enough self-confidence to just go ahead and say, I can do this without having the credit cards there as a crutch? And I'm not saying you're making the wrong decision. I'm just curious if those are issues for you, and if it really is the right decision for you or not.
it's a little bit of both. There's definitely a debt culture in the U.S. compared to other places in the world. I see a lot of people in Europe talking about this recently, and a lot of people even in the U.S. complaining about how horrible it is, and And there's evidence of that all around. And yes, I am a part of that culture. I want to get out of it. Right now, I am not comfortable because of my life situations completely going down that path. There's too much risk involved, at least for my comfort level and my wife's comfort level, in us, in even just me getting rid of credit cards. Because of the situations with our kids, with my business, with our monthly income versus expenses, with so many different things. That is something that I want to do. I mean, it's a thing that I've been talking about with other friends for years now. People that have learned a lot from Dave Ramsey and his whole financial outlook, which is, my parents are squarely big fans of Dave Ramsey, and I know half a dozen people that work for Dave Ramsey now, and it's really good advice. I really like that idea. I'm not comfortable with it right now, and I don't know. I have not yet determined at what point in my financial status I would be comfortable with doing that.
Yeah.
So I haven't taken the time to think that through.
If I made you think, then thumbs up. That's all I was after. So
let me give you a different alternative, because I actually don't agree with the getting rid of the credit cards.
Okay.
I charge everything on credit card, including stick of gum. Like, I go to the convenience store and the dude's like, "Really, credit card?" I'm like, "Yeah, yep, credit card, buddy." And the reason why is, okay, I have and I'll look. I'm going to plug a credit card company. I don't even get anything for it. I have a Citi double cash card. Okay. This card gives you 2%. It gives you 1% when you cash back when you make a purchase, and then another 1% when you pay it off. It's ridiculous. So you get 2%. Josh is like stuck in a smile on my screen.
Infinite smile loop.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. So I charge everything on the credit card, and I have a business credit card that only has a 1% cash back. Unfortunately, I need to get them both over to the. But regardless, I might charge like $100,000 a year or so on a credit card because I charge everything on it.
Right.
And 2% of $100,000 is $2,000. That's significant. Not only that, but I'm not paying for the things that I'm buying until 30 days later, which, I mean, that's, a lot of businesses do net 30 because of, you're making money on your money. You're extending. Now, this seems like stupid advice to give to someone who's in credit card debt, but here's the thing. I would cutting up credit cards is good, right? Not using credit cards at all, yeah. And using your debit card. I'll side table that. I'll tell you why you shouldn't use your debit card in a second. But essentially, like, the most optimum thing is to get paid for using your credit, like on the money that you're going to spend anyway. So I mean, if you can, I mean, it makes a big difference. Getting a 2% pay raise is significant. Getting 2% off your money, getting a 2% rebate on sales tax is a significant amount over time. So if you can get to that, now getting to that is not necessarily easy. Like, you still have to fix the other pieces.
And you got to be able to pay it all off.
Right. You have to have the rule of paying it all off every single time, right?
Which is what my wife does, actually. She has a personal credit card and debit card into our bank accounts, and she never uses her debit card. She always uses her credit card for similar reasons to you. Her credit cards either go to charity or go to 529 education accounts for our kids. Yeah. So she's using those credit cards all the time, and she pays them off every single month. She never has a balance on any of them.
And then the other side note of this, of why I would suggest not using your debit card, and this one has actually bit me, so I'll tell you. I mean, some of the debit cards do offer cash back as well, but here's the thing. When you use your credit card, most credit cards now, they offer a double the manufacturer's warranty. They offer theft protection, like all these super guarantees that you get for the credit card that they don't usually offer on the debit card. But the most important thing that bit me is when someone commits fraud with your credit card, what happens is it's automatically, because the thing is, credit card, the money isn't taken yet. You have to pay the credit card. So they automatically, all you have to do is say, that's not my charge, right?
Right.
If they do it with your debit card, they could drain your account. You might spend months trying to get the money back.
Yeah.
Because there's not that level. The money's gone when it's gone. You have to get them to actually put money back into your account, which you have to dispute. So that it's so much better if you can. If you can have the discipline to use the credit card, you get the cash back, you get those extra bonuses and guarantees, and you don't have to worry about someone stealing your number because they're not just going to drain your bank account. Plus, one other thing I'd say about credit card, which is you want to build the credit history, and so one of the major components of credit scoring is what your debt ratio is versus what your max is. So you want to have a high max on your credit cards with a very small utilization. And if you do that, that's going to help you because it's going to get your credit score up, which is going to help you when you get a loan or buy a house and things like that. So I'm giving you the optimal thing, not the baby. I'm not saying. Not trying to insult anyone, but I don't want to give you the I don't want to give you like the non-optimal advice because you can't handle the optimal advice. I'd rather say, look, just this is the optimal advice. Like, go straight to the optimal advice. Don't take the baby step. Like, just go here and do the smartest thing because it's going to be better for you in the long run, even though it requires a little bit more discipline.
Yeah, couple points on that. So I agree with a lot of what you said, but I disagree on a few things. So first of all, the rewards are great, but also people spend more money. You're much more likely to spend money when you're just slapping down a credit card than if you have to worry about how much money you have in your bank account. So,
and this is where John's point about paying it off every month and actually being disciplined about your spending.
Yeah, but that's delayed. That's a delayed accountability versus like if your card doesn't go through. You need $100 in there for groceries. You're going to think a lot harder before you just spend. Credit cards are like play money, and you still have to sit down at the end of the month and figure it out.
It's
so
still
that's one
optimal though, right? It's still discipline.
Well, if you're disciplined like you are, yes. I think 95% of people.
I am not right now.
Are not gonna. It's a ninja move.
Yeah.
And if you're not at ninja level, you're gonna probably end up. You're probably gonna end up
$25,000 in credit card debt.
It's like the people who try to play the market when they're amateur stock traders and they're trying to time the market. You're probably gonna end up on the bad end of that deal.
But see, if your discipline comes because of what's in your checking account. Right, because then it's like a false discipline. Like you're relying on a crutch that's not going to help you in the long term. I think. I mean, the other way to think about this too is like, first of all, if you're and again, I'm going to probably piss off some people, but look, if your checking account, if you have to look at the balance in your checking account before you spend a thing, you're doing it wrong. Like you need to have enough of a buffer in your checking account. I mean, if you're in debt, okay, you got to get out of debt first and then you can do that. But once you get out of debt, your next goal is to put enough of a buffer in your checking account where you have like you're like, I've always got like 15,000 in my checking account or whatever that number is. It's like I don't even have to worry. Like I never balance a checkbook or whatever because I know that there's enough buffer in there to be able to handle. Because otherwise you're living paycheck. Otherwise, like the furnace breaks, the car breaks, like it all happens at once because you drive your car into your furnace, right? Like you're screwed. You're totally screwed. So you got to have that margin of buffer there. So if you're relying on that, like I mean, at some point in your life you're going to have to. Like if you get out of credit card debt, I understand. Like now you're going to have to be living. Literally paycheck to paycheck because before you were negative paycheck to paycheck, right? But then your next goal is to get enough of a buffer in there so that you don't have to worry about it. But it doesn't mean like don't be disciplined. It means you still be extremely, extremely disciplined, but you always have that buffer so that you're not wasting time balancing checkbooks and doing all this stupid stuff that comes from just not putting 2 extra weeks or a month worth of money in your checking account.
So let me stand in between both Josh and John for a moment and say you're both right.
Yeah.
And your ideas will work. Each of your ideas will work for different people. Right now, I am more in the camp of Josh. I actually do want to get to the camp of John. That's what my wife does, and I think that's an appropriate way for our family to manage things. I can't do that right now, so I'm taking more of what Josh has said as my approach at the moment.
Yeah.
That's good.
The way we have ours set up, so we actually have about 10 different bank accounts, and I switched banks because my bank kept hassling me about how many accounts I had. I'm with Ally.com, which I love. They're an online bank. I love them. We have 10 different checking accounts. When I get a paycheck, I have automatic transfer set up. That money gets distributed into different accounts.
Mm-hmm.
We have a giving account. We have like a long-term savings account. We only ever have about $900 in we call it our joint checking account, where that's like our our living expenses. So only ever about $900. So if somebody steals our debit card, that's the money they get, and that's all they get. So we have thousands of dollars saved in our emergency fund, but it's untouchable. It's in an account that nobody can ever get to. It doesn't even have a debit card attached to it. So John, we watch our expenses. I don't like sit there and sweat about it, but I know about how much money we need to get from paycheck to paycheck. So we sort of force the paycheck to paycheck discipline on ourselves a little bit, even though we've got plenty of money stashed away for emergencies and stuff.
And that's a totally different situation. I mean, you're using that as a tool to make the discipline stricter, more strict for you, and you have financial goals that you're shooting for. So that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, totally. Like the key thing is just to get out of debt, right? I'm perhaps giving you the most optimal. I think it'd be pretty hard to argue that what I'm saying won't make you the most money if you have perfect discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, then definitely do what Josh does, but try to aspire to get the perfect discipline to be able to do the more optimal thing. And I kind of do a similar hybrid of what Josh does too. Like I have an ING account that automatically every month, instead of making car payments, I make pre-payments.
Right.
Like, I have $15,000 in a new car fund that is, I've been saving for years, and it just automatically goes. So I'm actually getting interest on car payments instead of the the dealer getting interest on me. And I mean, there's a lot of different tricks you can do. I like Josh's idea of when the money comes in, it splits out and goes to different places, and so it puts it out of your control. But
we've got like 6 different accounts. We have our savings account, we have our billing account, we have my personal checking, my wife's personal checking, my business checking, my business savings. Both of my credit cards are through the same bank where we have all of these accounts, and then my wife has a couple of credit cards as well. And she actually has a bank account with a local bank as well that she was using for something related to her research at one point.
It's funny though. It can get too complicated. Like at the very basic level, like sometimes I try to avoid as much overhead as because we talked about budgeting last time, but I don't do any budgeting now because it's like all overhead you have to manage, and it just comes down to this. Like I've gotten good at if overall it'll come down to how little do you spend. How much do you make? Like like minimize the amount that you spend, maximize the amount you make. Try to minimize the overhead because that's wasted time. And whatever that balance that you can find where you can do that, initially you might need more overhead because you lack discipline, but discipline will reduce overhead over time, which will give you a better profit margin. But you got to figure out where you are. But number one is just getting rid of the debt. Like I think you take that savings out, you pay off that debt, right? You're going to be. I mean, if you take that big chunk out, you're almost going to be debt free, right? You're going to be like.
That would put me down to if I take 10,000 out, I want to leave 3,000 in there. So if I take 10,000 out, that would put me down to 8,000 in debt.
Yeah,
which I could probably pay off within the next 2 to 3 months.
Exactly.
Do it.
Yep.
All right.
I gotta ask you, Josh, how much of a pain is it to switch bank accounts?
You mean like to switch banks like I did?
Yeah.
It honestly wasn't that bad because the money comes in. I mean, it was a bit of a hassle. It took, a few hours worth of work, but it was mostly most of the hassle was closing my bank accounts with my old bank. They were like a local bank, and they were just a pain in the butt. I had to physically go in with signed pieces of paper to close accounts.
I had a bank account in my hometown in Kansas that had been open for 12 years without me ever once doing anything in the account.
Nice.
And I was at home once for Christmas or something, and my wife was
Right back,
going
just get
around
the-
town with my wife, or my wife was going around town with my mom, and they stopped into this bank, and Joanne, my wife, looks at my mom and says, "I think Derick might still have a bank account here." So they asked, and sure enough, I did. It had like $25 in it.
They've
So-
probably been taking out like 50 cents every 12 months.
No, they hadn't. It had
Okay.
stayed where it was forever. It wasn't a typical bank. It was a what is it? Bank and trust, not a bank and trust.
Like a credit
Credit
union.
union. Yeah,
Yeah.
credit union. So there were never any fees on any of the accounts that I had. But I got this phone call. You know, I was out taking care of the kids at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and I get this phone call from this bank that I hadn't talked to in 12 years, basically saying, your mother and your wife are here, and they wanted to know if you wanted to close your bank account. Like, oh, I still have that? Okay, yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead and close it and give the $25 to my wife.
Yeah,
funny.
so it took me a few hours. It was definitely a few hours of work over a couple
Yeah.
weeks to get cut over. It's mainly like stuff like switching out, updating debit cards that are set to
Right.
automatically withdraw, updating our
Right.
mortgage, to pull out of the new account. Transferring money between banks is extremely painful.
Yeah, it
So
is.
there was that.
They should invent some kind of protocol or something.
I know.
Yeah, seriously. You know what's really sad on that note? The cheapest and easiest way for my client to pay me is still a printed physical check.
I was going to ask about that with an online bank. So
With all of the electronic transfer, with PayPal, with Dwala, with wire transfers, with all of these options out there, it is still cheaper and easier for him to print a physical check and hand it to me. And get this, he has all online banking. So
Yeah.
he prints a check from QuickBooks Online, prints it out of his paper, out of his printer, hands me a piece of paper. I take a picture of it with my phone and
Yeah.
deposit it to Bank of America. And that is the cheapest and easiest way for us to transfer money. Can't
You
keep
guys,
it electronic because that would cost too much money. Seriously, it would cost us like $50.
Well,
every
ACH
time
if you do ACH, but
well,
it's-
he would have to get set up for that, and that would cost
Yeah.
him a bunch of money every month. And I'm one of 2 subcontractors that he uses.
you don't take credit cards?
I do, but that costs 2.5%.
Yeah, it's 2.5%.
It
Plus-
costs you that 2.5%, not him.
It's going to cost either him or me, and
Right.
neither of us is going to pay that.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to pay $200 in credit card fees when you could spend 25 cents to print a physical check.
that's true.
This is the dumbest situation ever. I mean,
Yeah.
you
So
want
I'm
to talk
with
about
this-
living in the future? The financial industry lives 100 years in the past.
Oh yeah, I did some work for on Wells Fargo, transferring money, and you have to upload this arcane file format via
It's
FTP.
insane.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, have you people ever heard of security?
Right.
Anyway, my situation is basically that I'm banking with this local bank, and yeah, every time I walk in, I like get dinged for a fee for consuming oxygen in
Yeah.
the lobby,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm really looking at switching. I mean, I am just so tired of dealing with them. All
Yeah.
of the personnel are idiots, except for like one teller. Like if she's not there, I leave.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like, oh, yay, the brain's here. But anyway,
I love Ally. That I've been using them for over a year now. They consistently get rated the best online bank.
Yeah.
Their customer support has been awesome. I had a situation when I first switched where I didn't realize that I set up savings accounts, but I didn't realize they had a 3 transfer a month
Mhm.
limit on them, and I got dinged for like a $25 fee, and they waived that for the first. I was like, I didn't know about this. I'm sorry, I won't do it again, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And they waived that. They've been great. They have online chat support, online phone support. You hardly ever have to wait more than like 60 seconds to talk to a human being.
Nice.
yeah.
I've been really the only thing. So you can deposit checks with your camera phone. The only downside that I've found is you can't deposit cash.
Right.
which I hardly ever have, any cash of any amount that I couldn't just,
Couldn't tell you
spend.
the last time I had cash that I needed to deposit.
Right. So it's I've been
Craigslist,
super
baby.
happy.
You can
Yeah.
Craigslist stuff.
Yeah,
So to withdraw cash, you just hit some ATM somewhere.
Yeah, and they refund all the ATM fees. I don't even have to worry
Nice.
about which
Oh, wow.
ATM.
That's
I
nice.
Really? They
Yep.
refund all AT? Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yep.
See, I'm with Bank of America, and I generally don't like Bank of America as an organization. I think they're shady and do all kinds of horrible stuff. But I can't switch. I don't want to switch to anyone else because my local Bank of America branch office that I go to is so freaking amazing. The manager there knows me by name. I walk in there, and he pulls out his records and reviews our history of conversations and knows exactly who I talk to in the bank, who I've already talked to in the bank for what reasons, and it just does a phenomenal job of taking care of me when I go in there. Now, if I ever do walk up to a teller, that's an $8 charge, and that's frickin' ridiculous, and I hate that. It's the dumbest thing in the world. They have
He looked at me. He looked at me.
Yeah, exactly. They have two very, very, very up-to-date ATMs in the drive-through lanes, complete with, email me my receipts when I do a check deposit or withdrawal or anything like that. So it's pretty easy to use, and plus with the phone app. So there are things that I hate about Bank of America, but I've had such great experience with the people inside the building that I don't want to switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I switched, I'd just have to go in and change my merchant account, and any charges that are going to my existing accounts, and then switch Stripe.
Right.
And that's basically it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I did was I kept both accounts open for a while. I just made sure I had a nice big buffer in my old account.
Right.
Sure that nothing bounced, and then I left that in there for a while. Oh, and then the worst part was I zeroed out the account, and then I said I want to close this account, and they're like, oh, you should just keep this account open, just in case, just you might need it someday. And I was like, fine, all right, I'll leave it open. Well, then
they charge you
$100 or $1.50 fee for under minimum balance fee, right?
And then
which
an overdraft
then triggered
fee on that.
An overdraft fee. Yep. And I was like, screw it, I'm going.
It's like I'm dealing with the same people right now.
Yeah, close this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So another option for you, I use Chase. Chase is pretty good. I don't get any fees and in fact, even when I do a wire transfer, if I just say, hey, look, they'll waive the fee.
Nice.
And then they've got these super machines that you can feed 50 checks in and auto deposit. The thing.
Bank of America is like that too.
The biggest reason why I like Chase is I have 15 bank accounts. I have a separate bank account owned by a separate entity for each of my properties.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one master login that lets me, even though they're separate entities, access and manipulate all the accounts, which is before then, I forget who I was with before, but I had to log into 15 different accounts every month. It was insane. So that was the one thing that got me. And they have excellent bill pay and stuff like that. So
I really, really, really like Bank of America's bill pay system. I don't write paper checks anymore except for one or two things that are backwards but yeah, I use the crap out of the online bill pay, and I've got the one login for everything as well. And my wife, she has her own login to Bank of America. She doesn't get access to my business accounts because she's not on those accounts, but she gets access to all of our personal accounts.
Oh, that's nice.
So Bank of America has got that whole, multiple entities, one login thing as well.
Yeah.
So let's be like lawyers
too, or whatever. The other question I have regarding that, real quick, is all of my business happens under one entity.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth splitting it out? How does that complicate my life?
Splitting what out?
So, for example, if I went and got a DBA for DevChat.tv and another DBA for my consulting and another DBA for some of the other stuff I'm doing.
I wouldn't bother.
Don't do that to yourself.
No.
Don't. Some people do it, and it's just don't do that to yourself.
Can you set up multiple accounts under the same business entity then?
I get a pretty regular stream of people emailing me, hey, I got this charge on my credit card from Muted Solutions. What is this? and I look up, oh, you're a Watch Me Code subscriber. It's that. Oh, well, you're a Signally subscriber. Oh, okay. So I mean, I get those questions, but it's so much easier to deal with that than it is to deal with DBA and separate entities and all that stuff.
Plus, you'll have to file tax returns for each.
Yeah,
right?
right.
If you do them as S corps, which if you don't want to pay self-employment tax,
Yeah.
So John Sonmez's business empire just has multiple accounts under the same business entity for the different things?
Well, okay, so it's a little different with real estate because real estate, those are separate entities, but they're all LLCs and they're pass-through entities because the income's going to be treated like that anyway. There's no point filing real estate as S corp,
Right.
At least at my level, right? At someone else's level, they'll argue, and fine. But at my level, it doesn't make sense. But as far as all my business transactions that are non-real estate, like consulting, Simple Programmer, ad revenue, selling my courses, all that, all under Simple Programmer LLC. It used to be under Sonmez Ventures, but now it's Simple Programmer, and it's a lot easier. I mean, you could break it
just
apart
goes into one account?
Yep.
Okay. That's what I'm currently doing. I was trying to figure out if there was some advantage to having multiple accounts for my business.
Multiple accounts is one thing. Multiple business entities is a different subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I made an assumption there.
Yeah, if you want multiple accounts because you want to manage your money like that, because it's easier for you to put this bucket of money for this purpose, this bucket of money for that purpose, that's just how you want to manage your money. I like having separate buckets. I have a savings account. I have a business savings account that is nothing but tax money. I put all my money for taxes into that. There's like a $5,000 minimum that I have on there. And so I never let it drop below $5,000.
Wait a minute.
Oh no! No!
Yes, I'm going to go there. Yes, I am. I am totally going to go there. What is the interest rate on your credit card right now?
I don't know.
Okay, it's probably like 19%. Okay, here's what you need to take the tax money and pay off the credit card right now.
No.
Yes.
I will not do that ever. I don't care how much you badger me about it. I will never, ever, ever take money out of my tax account for anything other than paying taxes.
This doesn't make any logical sense why you would not do this.
I will not.
You're more afraid of the IRS than he is of you, John.
It doesn't make any sense at all. This makes no sense at all. I'm going to go back to Chuck saying you're afraid you're not committing to paying off this debt, because if you are committed to paying off the debt, then you know that okay, why borrow at 18 or 19% when you can borrow from yourself at 0% and pay yourself back? You have to pay back that account, right?
I have no confidence that I will be able to put that money back into the account in time to pay taxes.
You will have to. You won't have a choice. I'm telling you, if you do this, you're going to come up way ahead. Rather than paying 19% on a credit card, you're going to, and it will force you to be disciplined. Like, this is, trust me, this is like a smart move. Now, if it's also the beginning of the year, right? Like, if you're in December, I would not give you this advice, right? But at this point, you have plenty of time to pay that. Just start taking, you take 30% or whatever, right? And you put it into that account. From now on, you have to take 40 or 50% and put it in until you've got the account back up to the reserves that it needs to be. I wouldn't even tell you this if I didn't run my business the same way. In fact, I don't even save for taxes until Q4. Now, I'm not recommending everyone do that, but I invest all that money that would go to Uncle Sam, and I put it into where I'm making 10% interest, and then I have a 10% rebate on the money I paid to Uncle Sam. But I'm not suggesting someone do that. That's living dangerously. I acknowledge that. But I have a careful plan for it. But paying off debt that's 19% interest, trust me, I don't know, it's really hard to argue against that. I mean, especially in January, if you can just be a little bit disciplined, like automatically instead of taking 30%, take 40 or 50%, and you're going to get there, and you'll be fine, and you'll be saving yourself a huge chunk of money.
By April? I mean, are we talking by April, or is this money that you've already set aside for taxes
For
you have
next
to pay
year.
on this year?
For next year, he's talking about.
Yeah.
No, I'd have to take money out for what I owe in April and then do what he said, and
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Well,
I do not. I will tell you right now, I do not have the discipline to make that happen.
You have to have the discipline, otherwise there's no way you're going to pay off the credit card debt in the first place. Like, because this is going to make it easier on you because you're not going to have to pay 19%. Like it's going to make the amount that you have to pay a lot less.
Yeah,
like
although
you
the
have
19%,
the money. Like,
if you can pay the 19% off in 3 months, that's not going to be that much
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
It's like a few $100s.
right, but if you're going to pay the 19% off in 3 months, you might as well pay it all off right now, and then
put it back.
Then you're committed to it. Then you're committed to putting it back. Like, and plus, even if the crap hit the fan, in this case, you can file an extension with the IRS, and yes,
An
they're going to.
extension does not prevent you from paying. It only
Right.
prevents you from filing the final version of it.
And they'll charge you interest and a penalty, but it'll be less than 19%. So there's I don't know. I realize this is like something that a financial advisor would never advise you to do, but honestly, like if you want to do the smartest thing that's going to make sure that you get this debt paid off and get you on the right path right away, honestly, I would highly recommend considering that. I was actually about to suggest like another, like if you had more debt, like a home equity line of credit usually has like a 3 or 4% interest rate, which is a lot better than 19%. You still have to be real disciplined,
Right.
but this is a much better choice, I think. If you don't go with this, then maybe consider the home equity line thing. But like if you owed $50,000, I would totally be saying, okay, get a home equity line, pay the $50,000, pay 4% instead of 19%, and you're in a much better place. But you already have cash in the bank that you could pay this debt off with, so.
Wanna start a business but you just know how to code? Listen to the EntreProgrammers and we'll teach you straight up to be developers.